a crowd of people attending a public execution. The man is being burned alive, but it's not the flames consuming him, it's the pain, anger, and hatred. Sometime before these events, Klein was in the Queen's presence. She offered him the task of defeating the Black Dragon Queen, and as a reward, she promised to become his wife. Klein was enthusiastic about this generous offer, and after a while, he managed to find the Dragon Queen. The battle wasn't difficult. Knight Klein was up to the task and killed the Dragon Queen amid cheers from soldiers congratulating him on his victory. No one had been able to defeat the Dragon Queen for 100 years, and Klein alone did it. A feast was held in honor of this event. The Queen personally approached the knight to raise a glass celebrating his heroism. Before his campaign, Klein had promised he would drink with the Queen if he won. The Queen remembered her promise, and as soon as he drank with her, his dreams would come true. Klein drank the glass of wine to the last drop, and in that second, he felt something strange. Instead of keeping her promise, the Queen poisoned him. Guards surrounded the knight, and he was accused of inciting soldiers and attempting to provoke a rebellion. His loyal comrades tried to stop this madness, but their attempts were quickly thwarted. A sentence was passed convicting Klein, and anyone who defended him would be killed. The knight couldn't even move to resist, and his loyal comrades couldn't do anything because they were outnumbered. The guard commander was pleased with this turn of events. This is where it all began. The flames consumed Klein. He laughed in response to the accusations of conspiracy and rebellion. The crowd, as usual, believed the fabricated charge. As he burned alive, Klein vowed to destroy this entire cursed world. Eventually, the fire did its job. After a while, nothing remained in the square but snow and ash. At this moment, an unknown woman approached the extinguished fire. She summoned a magical power. Klein's suffering was about to end, and the age of magic was coming. She would once again grant the knight the right to choose. A magic circle formed in the sky, and Klein began to rise from the ashes. His first words were, "I will destroy this world." The woman was pleased to hear that. Klein had risen from death, but his body was disfigured. 3 years have passed since then. The knight sits on a building's roof, feeling bored. Won't anything interesting happen here? Suddenly, noise rose in the streets. Finally, time for some fun. Klein rushed to the center of events. Palace guards were demanding citizens hand over their weapons. There was a little girl sitting near the weapon collection point. One of the knights asked the girl to hand over an unregistered sword. The girl cried and begged them not to take her deceased mother's gift. The guard drew his sword and threatened the child, saying this was an order from His Majesty. The girl refused to hand over her sword and closed her eyes, afraid of death, so the guard raised his sword to kill her. The guard swung his strike, but the sword flew from his hand. He looked up to see who did that. Klein was sitting on the roof and mocked the guard, calling him his lord. The people saw their savior. This time, his name was no longer Klein. The crowd called him Shiro. The guard yelled at him not to resist or they would show no mercy. The guard commander ordered his arrest. The guards rushed to attack, and at the same moment, Shiro scattered them all. Only the palace guard commander remained, who screamed that he wouldn't forgive him. Shiro grabbed the guard's hand, confirming he wouldn't let them take the weapons, searching for magic shards. The guard pulled out a dagger hidden in his sleeve, refusing to be defeated, but that didn't help him, and he received a knockout blow. Shiro advised him not to be arrogant and to leave while he could, and to leave everything. The guards left their belongings and fled, screaming that he was a demon and they had no chance against him. The little girl thanked Shiro for his help, but he didn't need thanks. He was no longer that good man he used to be, just a righteous thief. Shiro addressed the crowd and asked them to take everything the guards left behind. The people cheered and chanted his name. At this time, the palace guard commander was in a state of rage and vowed revenge. Moonlight illuminated the tower. The masked knight was suffering from boredom. Someone who appeared out of nowhere addressed him, saying that even though he's now a righteous thief respected by the people, and asked him with a faint laugh if he was still bored. The knight answered indifferently that he didn't care about respect. What mattered was fun. The girl watched him thoughtfully, wondering why the strongest knight approached common people. A dagger was stabbed into the roof, making a distinctive sound. Shiro felt the priestess was mocking him. The dark-haired woman denied mocking the former king of knights, but the knight thought that even if she was mocking him, he had been executed on charges of treason and lost everything. The knight looked at the huge moon and cursed his fate. The woman reassured him that as long as he was alive, there was a chance to change things. The rescued knight wondered about his savior's motives. The mysterious Misius answered evasively, saying she enjoyed others' suffering. The The knight surrendered to his fate and accepted Misius's help, who reassured him and promised to stand by his side no matter what. The scene shifts to Lind Castle, the Count's headquarters. The subordinate informed his master of the failure, using the enemy's strength as an excuse and that he was someone they couldn't handle. The angry master rebuked him for his uselessness and threw a glass of juice to shatter on the floor. The defeated subordinate begged for forgiveness. The woman beside the master smiled with schadenfreude. The master rebuked James for his continuous failures and that Shiro destroyed their forces. James begged for one last chance, promising to capture Shiro. The angry master refused, finally frustrated because he had given him too many chances. The master summoned warriors to his side. The two warriors approached and bowed their heads, ready to execute the order. Capture Shiro at any cost. The dismissed commander would now become an ordinary soldier. He agreed because life was more precious than salary. A view of the city from above. Shiro watches from above the crowds and the oppression of common people. Trouble is about to happen. The blade fragments will reunite once again. The priestess read a line from the prophecy. Shiro muttered that he didn't care and that he didn't become a righteous thief to uphold justice and wouldn't do anything stupid. The dark-haired girl sarcastically admired Shiro's cynicism. Unrest returned to the city once again. The knight and the girl noticed suspicious activity. He was annoyed by the guard's persistence. The priestess noticed a change in their behavior. The knight rushed into battle without caring about the reasons. The red-haired knight delivered a powerful blow. The city residents watched the destruction in horror, and the homeowner said she put a lot of effort into building it. The soldiers demanded the townspeople hand over their valuables, and that it was an order from the Lord. An old man fell to the ground from being hit by the guard and begged for mercy, calling for help from Shiro. The guard stepped on the poor old man's face. The former officer contemplated his fate, disturbed by that action. The townspeople welcomed the approaching knight. When the man saw him, he received a punch to his jaw. The guard flew a good distance backward. Shiro was ready to face the city guards, but he didn't expect them to return this quickly. Shiro accepted the new guard's challenge, promising to be their nightmare. The angry knight attacked with his strongest moves. Shiro stopped the blow with just his index finger. The angry opponent was shocked by his failure, even though he struck with all his strength. At that moment, hands emerged from underground and grabbed Shiro's legs. The red-haired man issued an order to capture the knight. The soldiers rushed to execute the order. Shiro raised his index finger without panic, and it began to glow with a bright pink light. The guard didn't even realize what was happening. The enemies received a powerful blow, and Shiro had only touched the ground with his finger. He not only copied the attacker's technique but also managed to amplify it. The armored knight flew backward with tremendous force, almost breaking through the building. Amazed that Shiro possessed a knight's power, Shiro approached his opponent, lifted him by his hair, and told him he had better than that. Then he demanded answers about what was happening and why they kept looting the town, pressing the guard's head against the wall. But he refused to speak. He was loyal to his master. Shiro decided to remove his mask to tell him his truth. He announced his demonic nature, frightening the prisoner. The knight revealed his scars and demanded an honest answer, or else he threatened to destroy his entire family, wouldn't spare even his children, and would feed them to the dogs. The terrified prisoner agreed to tell him everything. He mentioned his master's name and told him that his master was interested in the magical artifact Shiro carried. The client wanted a magic dagger emitting pink flames. That's all the red-haired guard knew. Shiro let him go with a final warning that if he did that again, he would kill his family. The frightened prisoner rushed away, and his men quickly left the city streets. The knight was left alone, thinking about the fact that peace wouldn't last long in this city. There were whispers about a mysterious avenger outside the walls of Lind Castle. Rumors about the righteous thief stirred the city's residents, and they were shocked by his bold methods. There were even tales about the Count's public humiliation and him being a righteous thief. A mysterious stranger wearing a cloak hid among the crowd. She removed her hat, revealing her blonde hair. She smiled cunningly and whispered to her brother Shiro to wait for her. Her green eyes burned with determination. A knight wearing a red cloak walks through the square, attracting attention. Shiro began to realize the Count was his new target. Someone called the knight by his name. Shiro turned to look. The girl rushed joyfully toward him because she finally found him. An unexpected shock knocked the knight to the ground. The stranger hugged the knight, amazed at how soft his body was. The angry knight demanded an explanation of who she was and why she was bothering him. The girl introduced herself as Carol, the genius knight, and expressed her desire to help when she heard Shiro was in trouble. The knight coldly refused her help and told her to go home. Carol wondered if he was dismissing her. The distressed girl reminded him of her long journey and her attractiveness. The knight roughly pushed the annoying girl away. He mutters angrily because of the strange encounter. Once again, the girl attacks while screaming that she wants to be a righteous thief too, and do bad things to bad people. Those around her are shocked by her statement. The knight asks to move away from the crowded streets and talk to her privately. The girl gets angry and demands to be taken on his next mission. Shiro angrily asks what the girl wants. The girl pulls something from her cloak and suggests using a foul-smelling potion. If you smell it, you won't be able to eat for 3 days. The knight is amazed by the girl's craziness. The girl talks about the potion's terrible effects. Shiro is interested in the suggestion and agrees to take the girl with him, but instead of being a thief, the knight promises to teach her how to have fun. The girl was surprised by the unexpected turn. Carol screamed with joy, and now they're discussing the plan for the surprise raid on the Lord, asking her opinion if it isn't fun, and she responds positively. Meanwhile, in the palace, the guards tell about the unfortunate incident. The disturbing news threw the count into despair. The man was pulling his hair in anger that he couldn't collect the shards. His fear of Lord Cain was clear. The angry lord blamed his subordinates for the failure. The guards listened in horror to his angry speech about how they couldn't catch one thief. But there was more bad news. A defiant girl broke into the house and caused chaos. The lord was furious at the uninvited guest's appearance. A girl cunningly attacked the guards with an unknown substance. The knights fell victim to the unusual attack. One of the knights informed the count of this. The bearded man growled angrily, asking who would do such a thing. A red cloak flashed in the air, soaring above the enemy. Upon landing, the armored warrior in front of him asked the count about his identity. Shiro looked at the count and greeted him rudely. The bearded man gripped his sword blade. The count didn't expect to face the thief again. Shiro rushed toward the count. The knight grabbed his enemy by the throat, and the bearded man groaned in pain. A knight wearing a red cloak pins the count against the wall and tells him he won't be able to escape. The bearded man smiles slightly and asks Shiro to wait and suggests they just talk. The count signals his soldiers to help him overpower the knight. The armored guards start to approach. Shiro looks at the guards with contempt and tells him, "Do you think they can defeat me?" and signals Carol for help. The girl entered the hall, kicking the doors open with her foot. The young lady's appearance excited everyone. Carol throws a bottle of unknown substance at the guards. Something disgusting splattered everywhere. The guards backed away in horror. The smell was unbearable. One of the knights couldn't stand it and threw up. The knight unleashed his power on his opponent, while the female knight kicked the defeated enemy with her foot, taking revenge for the citizens. The interrogation began. Shiro started asking about the alleged Mako device and told him he had no hope now. The count was trying to figure out how serious the boy's motives were. At that moment, the blade stabbed the count's arm. The man screamed in pain, realizing that Shiro wasn't joking. Either the man tells everything he knows, or Shiro will break his bones. The count screams in pain and agrees to tell him everything. The knight felt an approaching threat. An unknown man threw something toward the knight. Shiro couldn't deflect the attack. The projectile flew between his fingers. A needle embedded itself in the count's body. The fat man screamed, writhing in pain. Shiro had made a mistake and hadn't been careful enough. He couldn't prevent the attack. The red-cloaked knight tries to catch up with his attacker, but realizes with annoyance that the target has escaped successfully. Carol looked at the count. The dead man lay on the ground and the girl gloated. The blue-haired knight looked coldly at the defeated man. The count's face twisted into a grimace of horror. The needle's poison killed him quickly enough, though it seemed extremely painful. What a miserable end. In another scene, a mysterious man asked the attacker if he dealt with that fool, and John Doe replied with the success of the operation, confident in his poison. The angry man ordered the pace of work to be accelerated, and that it was foolish to think they could handle the matter. Of the 2 remaining pieces, one is already in Shiro's possession. The old man smiled wickedly, sensing the challenge. Shiro must be killed and the fragments collected that will unleash the royal Mako power. It will become the strongest in the world, and I will put an end to that. The count died. The looting began. The raiders grabbed the treasure greedily, fighting over the spoils with shouts. There were 2 watching from the roof. Is Shiro satisfied with the scene? Does he feel better? He answered that the villain's fall lifted his spirits. Carol marveled at her brother's strength. She celebrates the victory on the roof. The knight promises new entertainment. The woman warns of the consequences, and that those who support the count won't stay quiet. Shiro replies that there's no reason to fear, and he doesn't consider them a threat. Carol gets excited about the upcoming battle, saying the more enemies, the more fun. The priestess smiles slightly, anticipating another revenge and that a flood of blood will rain down on that town. Newspaper reporters present breaking news that Lord Han announced that Shiro killed the Count. The townspeople praise Shiro. Carol tells Shiro about the praise. Shiro is surprised by the unexpected fame. The knight reads an invitation from Cain in 2 days. Carol is surprised that Lord Cain is inviting them to dinner. The knight suspected a trap, but agreed. They'll deal with any upcoming event. The knight promises more entertainment, expecting it to be stronger than before. Meanwhile, the heavy door was forcefully opened. Light from a torch can be seen below. A man looks at the girl in the flask. He calls her Aisha and says, even though it's been 4 years, you're still beautiful. The two men discuss Lord Cain's invitation and wonder if Shiro will come. Cain knew that his pride would make him show up, even knowing it's a trap. Whether he'll leave alive or not is a different story. The follower said that Shiro is skilled, and eliminating him will be difficult. The white-haired giant responded to this warning with contempt and asked him, "Do you think this is just a trap?" Cain summoned the beast's power, the power of the cursed lion. Fierce flames erupted. A beast appeared chained and surrounded by magic. The witness was terrified when he saw the lion's power. The villain created an experimental weapon from 6 fragments by merging a fragment of the purple flame blade with a regular lion fragment. The fierce fire lion roared, displaying its power. The unknown person looked with horror at the spiritual power of 1 fragment, and that if he gathered all the fragments, he would destroy the world and achieve their dream. The villain's face twisted into an evil smile and said, "Nevertheless, someone is no longer with them." Shiro arrived at the castle. People look at him and whisper, "Is he really planning to talk with Lord Cain?" The crowd makes way for the guest. Lord Cain greets Shiro. Cain remembers all the glorious knight's exploits. Shiro is honored by the Lord's attention and remembrance of him. The knight confirmed that everyone's contribution to building the castle will be remembered. The leader invited everyone to build a better future together, then told them that the food and drink are ready, so please help yourselves. The guests accepted the invitation to the party happily. The servants announced that the food is ready. Mountains of roasted pork were waiting in the hall. The host suggested they not be shy and eat as much as they want. The knight refused the food, puzzling his companion. The girl happily offered to eat the food herself. The fearsome warrior stared suspiciously at the knight and told him, "It seems you don't trust us." Shiro accused the warriors of deceit and that he saw at the moment Klein was killed. The warriors were shocked by the knight's words. Cain inquired about the real purpose of the visit, then put his feet on the table and raised his blade. But a needle pierced the air, targeting the sitting man. Carol deflected the attack, defending her brother. Shiro asked them, "Is that little show over?" The colored-haired warrior mocks his opponent, then orders his warriors to kill the insolent man. The knights attack, but Shiro doesn't care. He calls them with contempt, saying they'll remain tools no matter how much time passes. A powerful punch from Shiro shook the hall. Cain deflects that strike from Shiro. The knight smiles, anticipating the fight. Shiro releases dark energy. The angry Cain requests help from his advisor. The sorcerer summons the sleeping beast. A beastly roar echoed through the palace. The knight scrutinizes the summoned creature. Cain tells Shiro to surrender because he won't understand how he reached that stage. The old man with the fiery gaze ordered the lion to attack the guest. The fire lion charged with an angry roar, and the flames consumed everything around it. Shiro smiled. "You're too soft." The beast was glowing with destructive pink energy. The knight dodged the attack and continued to provoke the beast. The beast roared and directed a stream of energy toward the young man. Shiro flew away, destroying everything in his path. The crowd cheers. Cain is invincible. The victor mocks the defeated Shiro. Cain tells Shiro that he should blame himself for being arrogant with his power and daring to face him. Suddenly, a great person rises from the dust, scattering the pieces of rock accumulated on his body. The old man looks with horror at what's happening. He marvels at the power of the awakened being. Shiro's distorted body appeared and said it's been a long time since he saw a strong first-class beast. The evil look in his eyes predicted something terrible. Cain orders the enemy destroyed. The beast eagerly begins to roar with greater force. Shiro smiled contemptuously, then stood to face the beast. He suddenly took a fighting stance when he saw the lion approaching. Shiro rushes to face the lion, saying he's good at hunting beasts, and delivers a crushing blow, sending the lion flying behind its master's back. Cain refuses to lose. He summoned the power of phantom chains. A vortex of dark energy swallowed everything around it, and the knight was trapped, surrounded by evil spirits. Kane told him he would die quickly, and that they wouldn't leave him until they drained his life. But Shiro just smiled without losing his composure. Suddenly, a powerful fiery explosion occurred, with which the dark energy retreated, and the knight was able to move again. Kane was shocked by the abilities the young knight possessed. Shiro closed the distance between him and his opponent as quickly as possible and said it's just that he's stronger than him, and delivered a swift strike to Kane's jaw, resulting in a powerful explosion that knocked the enemy backward. Kane didn't understand how the knight obtained such powers. It seems Shiro is also a summoned spirit to some extent. Then he said, "Is that all you've got?" Shiro charged to attack again, so Kane ordered his lion to protect its master no matter what. The pink lion intercepted the path to Kane, determined to distract the knight. Shiro delivered many punches to the lion until he knocked it down. Shiro didn't look toward Kane, but he was no longer there. He heard footsteps behind him, and when he turned, he saw Kane fleeing at maximum speed, but Shiro didn't intend to let him go. At that moment, the lion rose to its feet again, and a magical vortex burst from its mouth, but the knight managed to deflect the energy stream with one fist, so the attack spread throughout the hall. The knight decided to deal with his opponent, the lion, first. Kane had already fled from the castle and headed to the streets, wondering about that man's identity. Meanwhile, Shiro delivered a powerful blow to the lion, unlikely to wake up from it soon, then left the palace announcing he's coming while the lion lay behind him unconscious. At that moment in the street, the people around him recognized the fleeing knight as Lord Kane, and were surprised by his tension, and wondered if Shiro defeated him. In despair, Kane ordered his men to capture the enemy and give him some time, then attacked with chains with phantom skulls. The trapped people tried to free themselves in terror, and the townspeople screamed in agony as their lives were drained. Shiro had already caught up with his opponent and tried to help the poor villagers that Kane trapped. The knight looked at the townspeople. They were begging for help, realizing in terror that they were dying. The enemy smiled with a wicked smile, challenging Shiro's feelings will he let them die. But he knew what Kane was trying to do. He was just trying to buy time. Shiro didn't give in to the provocation because he came back from hell, and such tricks won't work on him. Ignoring the civilians' lives, the warrior attacked. Kane was shocked by the enemy's decision. The blades clashed in a fierce battle, and Kane's sword cracked then broke from the powerful strike. The knight attacked fiercely and knocked his opponent backward, so Kane pierced the wall with his body. Anger filled the old warrior's face, and Shiro announced the end of the game. Suddenly, the same mysterious assassin who uses needles appeared above his head. The young man turned to look at the pathetic attempts to pierce his body with poisonous needles, and with a wave of his hand, Shiro redirected his opponent's attack. A sinister laugh echoed, and dark magic wrapped the knight in purple chains. He tried in terror to free himself from his bonds. Meanwhile, Lord Kane was trying to escape once more. The heavy doors of Kane Castle's dungeon swung open. Kane returned to his beloved and gazed at the captive Aisha in her green cocoon. Agonizing over doubts, he asked himself what he should do. Suddenly, a magic circle formed beneath the Lord, and violet magic glowed around him. He decided to end everything. The purple energy destroyed Aisha's flask. The knight promises to fulfill her dream. Shards embedded themselves in Lord Kane's back, and dark power overwhelmed the knight. He embraced the pink-haired girl. Shiro tried to free himself from the purple chains, and with a sudden movement, he tore through the magical barrier. Shiro tried to figure out how the unknown one managed to disappear, leaving only the chains behind. Suddenly, the entire ground began shaking violently, and panic seized the city. Buildings collapsed like houses of cards. The girl covered her head with her hands in terror, and one of the buildings fell toward her, but Shiro pushed away the imminent danger with his hand. The knight watched the destruction. He knew it was Kane's doing. Kane's guard squad rushed to the dungeon, sensing a strange energy. They remembered Kane's mysterious power, and the warriors rushed toward Lord Kane, worried that Shiro might hurt him. At the entrance, the same hooded man was waiting for them. The warriors discussed Shiro's power and the mysterious energy emanating from the basement. The hooded man's tongue slipped out, saying that Lord Kane decided to retreat after realizing Shiro's power, and before leaving, he decided to share the wealth with everyone. The warriors rejoiced at Lord Kane's generosity and cheered, praising their leader. The knights entered a locked room to meet Kane. A sudden gust of wind filled the hall, and the entire group was defeated by strange tentacles. An ominous energy overwhelmed the knights, and they screamed in pain. A terrifying monster emerged from the darkness, and it seemed as if the warriors' life forces had been drained from their bodies. The knights flew backward from the powerful blow, and the monster smashed its way through the dungeon's ceiling to escape. The monster appeared in the city streets and let out a terrifying howl. The mysterious advisor was watching what was happening and flew after the monster, calling the people fools with contempt. The monster attacked the villagers and people scattered in terror. The creature grabbed its victims, absorbing their life force. Shiro approached the monster and tore the tentacles with a powerful strike, and the stunned villagers fell to the ground. The monstrous creature terrified Misius, so Shiro asked her what this being was. She explained that it was a defective magic warrior, absorbing power to compensate for its deficiencies. Shiro initially thought it was Kane's pet, but the girl objected, saying it was Kane himself. He had reacted with a fragment of the violet flame blade. Had Kane descended to this level? The monster attacked the young man. The knight prepared for battle, but the monster suddenly changed its plans, simply turned around and walked in the other direction. Shiro and his priestess were slightly confused. Then she said it seems he's searching for the lion fragment to increase his power. In a fit of rage, Shiro tried to stop the monster, directing a crushing blow at it, hitting it, and cutting off several of its tentacles. Shiro caught up with it and prepared to deliver another strike, but a stream of energy burst from the monster's mouth. The knight groaned in pain and flew backward, but he didn't give up. It mocked him, saying he could fight a little. The monster rushed back toward the castle, and the knight tried to catch up. Meanwhile, at the castle, the giant pink lion still lay unconscious with Karos playing on his belly. Carol noticed a flash of pink energy. The monster knocked the girl off the lion's body. She took a direct hit and slammed into the castle wall. Kane ran to the lion's corpse, eager to take the fragments, and struck the lion with his tentacles. He needs 2 more lives to be free. The monster grabbed the lion's heart. Kane angrily demanded the release of his body, but the captor mockingly refused his request, explaining that he finally found a body. The prisoner desperately clung to his freedom. The monster roared, demanding the body obey. Kane tried to resist, but his strength was running out. Shiro caught up with the monster and attacked again with his sword, cutting off the monster's limbs. The ice-eyed knight wished death upon his enemy. The monster acknowledged the warrior's strength but mocked him, saying, "Playtime's over." The dark energy seized the lion's heart, and the monster broke free, surrounded by purple energy. Shiro stared in shock at what was happening. A massive explosion shook the ground, debris flew everywhere, and a horrifying laugh was heard from among the dust clouds. Something laughed bitterly and gleefully, reveling in the chaos. It felt power controlling the world once more. The fire monster unleashed its fury and loomed over the knight, who tried in terror to understand what was going on. Flames consumed everything around, and the monster declared its return to the world once again. Shiro realized this was no longer Kane and asked about its identity, only to be told it didn't matter because he would die here. The fire monster summoned a demonic technique, and a powerful explosion shook the ground. The 9-headed flame monster appeared. The 9-headed dragon awakened. The monster opened its massive jaws, ready to attack, and its scales gleamed, radiating threatening energy. Shiro jumped high to assess the situation from above, but suddenly, the multi-headed dragon surrounded him, baring its fangs. With an angry shout, the warrior swung his magic-charged sword, and a powerful strike sliced through the air toward the enemy. The dragons roared, ready to attack, and a powerful explosion formed when the attack wave collided with the dragon heads. From the shockwave, Shiro also flew backward. As soon as the young man landed, the fire golem approached and attacked him with tremendous force, driving Shiro into the ground at incredible speed. It seemed the attack didn't affect the young man much. The fire monster approached the young man again, so Shiro summoned a protective barrier, reflecting the fierce attack. The fire golem advanced, directing another blow at the enemy. The knight's armor cracked, and the man was thrown aside as Shiro hit the wall. The knight gritted his teeth in anger. Suddenly, the priestess appeared. She was worried, and said the strongest knight is in such bad shape. Shiro sighed deeply. He hadn't fully appreciated the golem's power. A fire monster mocks the miserable humans and the girl, saying she came to die with him. As for the sorceress, she challenged the brute force, saying it doesn't always mean justice, and she resolved to execute her plan, following the threads of fate to take a shortcut to victory. The golem turned its attention to the priestess, noticing an ominous magical symbol. Kane was entangled in red threads, like a puppet imprisoned inside his mind. The price of power was to become a puppet forgotten by everyone. He snarled, refusing this fate, and tried to remember why he came all this way. A memory flashed in the warrior's eyes, a girl dreaming of a strong husband and a happy marriage. He swore to protect her from all dangers. The loyal knight protected the girl from dangers, and after a while, he became a hero standing at the top of the empire beside his beloved. In a flash of rage, he remembered the betrayal and the promise he once made. The goal is the top of the empire at any cost. Cain vowed to crush everyone in his path. The bonds that held him faded, and Cain's image appeared in the golem's eyes. Cain was trying to resist and regain control of his body. The loyal knight must reclaim his former name. The fire monster resisted, surprised by his awakening, then told him that the resistance of kings is something that has never happened before, and the knight ordered whoever it was to leave his body. Shiro and the priestess watched this internal struggle. The priestess said she removed some of the fate threads, and that the rest depends on Cain. The knight expelled the creature from his body, but the monster didn't surrender, and seemed ready to unleash its wrath on anyone who stood in its way. The flame-clad knight resisted desperately. The dark-haired girl wanted to help stop the fight. The priestess suggested the knight use the artifact's power. The hero was ready to risk everything to win, trying to feel around for the dagger's handle. Shiro felt nothing. The young man realized the artifact had disappeared. The blade was lost among the building ruins. Meanwhile, Cain was trying to expel the fire monster, and it was clear the Lord was having difficulty dealing with it. "Game over," came an ominous voice. "Time to get serious." The flaming knight realized in terror that the end was near. An explosion shook the city walls, and the monster regained complete control of the body after suppressing the internal rebellion. Shiro frantically searched for the lost dagger, confused about where it fell. A voice echoed, asking, "Do you understand, human? Ancient evil awakens from a dark sleep that lasted 1,000 years. Shiro had to do something urgently." The young man used the protective barrier again to block the fire golem's attack, but it soon began to crack and then shattered. The hero screamed in pain as the blow sent him flying through the air. The fire giant mocked human weakness before the wrath of kings. Shiro stood up, repeating that he was no longer human. At least not anymore. The fire monster raised an eyebrow in surprise. The giant wasn't expecting such a response. Shiro called himself the Wandering Soul since his awakening. The warrior's glowing eyes ignited with fierce energy, and a curtain of shadow descended upon the enemy. The fire monster didn't realize what was happening. The knight attacked the fire giant, and the golem turned sharply toward him to block the strike. The knight delivered a crushing blow that stunned the enemy with the variety of his techniques. The fire golem threw the annoying young man away. Shiro realized that a long fight was undesirable and things must be finished as quickly as possible. The knight ran furiously through the destroyed streets, searching for the artifact. Shiro saw his dagger gleaming from afar, but it was a long distance away. The knight was pleased to see the fragment. The golem looked around searching for the annoying knight and glimpsed something on the horizon. The fragment and the man running toward it. This was exactly what the monster needed to unleash its amazing power. The fire monster won't allow the last fragment to be stolen. The knight was one step away from the blade, but suddenly noticed that the golem was also starting to approach the artifact quickly. A sharp flash lit up the young man's face, and the monster pushed him away. The knight was thrown backward by the explosion and fell, gritting his teeth in anger. This was the last fragment the villain found. Finally, the fire monster can show its true power. A massive explosion occurred, and the golem disappeared. The situation escalated for our hero. The villain found real power and longs to control the world. Our hero challenged a powerful enemy, but approached the golem, declaring he wouldn't let that happen. The scene shifted to a cell in Lind Castle. The priestess spoke about fate. Everything in this world has a beginning and an end. The priestess used a spell near the destroyed vial. Cain sensed someone else's interference, and with an angry scream, he unleashed a purple flame. The mighty knight would not back down. The demon won, mocking the humans, and suddenly his hand changed color. Shiro resisted fiercely, refusing to surrender. The knight tried again and again to overcome the fire golem, but it said that no matter how determined the hero was, when the fusion was complete, he would be the first to die. At this point, Cain regained consciousness and began to resist the monster, which started hitting itself. The knight realized the monster was Cain, who attacked with renewed strength. The knight vowed revenge for trying to take over his body. The weakened monster opened a gap in its defense, and Shiro saw his chance to win. At that moment, he remembered a conversation. The knight listened silently to the princess as she asked him if he was ready to serve, for the peace of the people, and to fight for glory. Her piercing gaze was full of cunning as she asked him, "Are you ready for that?" The knight stated firmly that he was ready to do anything for his ideals, and moved forward confidently, never wavering from his goal. Shiro refused to break his oath and threw himself back into battle against the monster. but not for the princess. The harshest blow rained down on the enemy, and the city shook with the force of the impact. Buildings collapsed, raising clouds of dust. The fire monster deflected the attack, but unfortunately, it dropped the fragment. Shiro managed to extract the fragment before it fully synchronized with the monster, which couldn't protect it while in a rage, and wouldn't let the hero take it. The monster's gaze saw danger approaching. Another blow to its face. The tormented Kane demanded the demon be expelled from his body. Shiro coughed blood, his strength failing. He who had been betrayed, why was he fighting with the last of his strength? Natsu came to his mind, and he wondered, maybe she's not the only person I loved. The knight made up his mind and swore to himself, I won't lose this time. Shiro summoned the power of the purple flame, and a purple beam shot into the sky, filling the young man with a purple glow. The fire monster realized things were bad. Shiro was now filled with energy. The mysterious advisor was still watching. His plan, in which he had put great effort from a mysterious person, had failed. The priestess also noticed the column of purple energy and was pleased that Shiro had managed to awaken the artifact's power, saying she made the right decision choosing him. The hero was filled with brutal power, and the transformation was about to complete. The synchronization succeeded, and Shiro transformed beyond recognition. It's over, came an icy voice. The face with the burned cheek twisted with grim determination. During this time, Kane continued to fight for control of his body. The Lord groaned in pain, and containing the rage of the blazing monster became increasingly difficult, and the warrior realized the heart was his weak point. I'm counting on you, he told the hero. A gleaming blade cut through the air. The monster roared, You pitiful creature, you're in my way. The monster possessed 6 fragments while the young man had only 1. Did he really hope to win this battle? Shiro accepted the challenge, remembering previous battles he had won. Shiro rushed into the attack. A demonic blow struck the enemy, and purple energy split the space. The fire demon focused its energy, directing a fiery tornado toward the knight. A clash of blows occurred, and huge explosions echoed through the city streets. Is this really all the fire monster can do? The knight attacked with a purple blade, and the fire monster blocked the strike and warned that the magic would consume the young man, and he wouldn't be able to control it. But Shiro wasn't willing to listen to warnings despite the pain he felt, then rushed toward the monster saying he was from a poor family. He was small, weak, and helpless. If he was someone who gave up easily, he wouldn't have made it here. The knight rushed forward, refusing to surrender. A mass of dark energy exploded from his hand, greatly increasing its speed, stunning the enemy. A fiery aura enveloped the golem to protect it. The knight unleashed his power with hatred, saying he carries many hopes on his back. And with a powerful stab, his opponent staggered. The fire demon felt the knight's power with every part of its body. The monster flew away, and Shiro remained steady in a final attack position. Then he remembered, the queen granting him the title of knight. He accepted her blessing with his head bowed. After being strong, destroying the world, but not in the way he imagined. The sky was covered with storm clouds, and a crimson rose opened under the pouring rain. The fire monster collapsed on the wet pavement stones, and the flames surrounding it flickered and pulsed. The magical energy gathered into a purple crystal. Lord Kane was regaining consciousness. The defeated opponent lay under the rain. The knight approached and kicked the man lying on the ground. Don't play dead, Shiro said, looking at Kane. Then he added bitterly, Look at what you've done. The destroyed city was enveloped in smoke under a gray sky. The defeated man growled, I've never lost to you. The knight replied, You're the reason this battle broke out in the first place. He was so exhausted he could barely stand. Then Kane said that Heel was the one who tricked him, and told him that if he collected the magic weapons, he would be the strongest in the world, and didn't mention a word about the side effects. The name was familiar to the hero, so he asked him, Do you mean that bastard with the chain? Kane spoke sadly and ignored the hero's question, saying he would die or lose control again to take revenge on that bastard. The knight was torn between death and revenge, and gloating laughter heralded more trouble. Under the rain, the priestess came to comfort him, and in the stranger's arms, the knight saw his beloved. Lord Kane spoke words of gratitude, and the dark-haired girl hinted that his life began with that girl, so it should end with her. The knight decided to stay with the girl until the end. He gently embraced Aisha, whispering her name sadly, under the rain and among the ruins. The priestess and Shiro discussed their defeated enemy. The priestess said he was a victim of fate. The hero blamed him for what happened. He was a victim of his greed that granted him power. Shiro approached and picked up a fragment of the artifact. The priestess said that one of the 7 magic weapons is very powerful. This purple flame blade is a powerful magic weapon capable of destroying a city with one strike. Fortunately, it was stopped in time. Suddenly, a strange sound was heard, and in the same second, blood-red energy rushed forward. Shiro dodged the blow, shocked by its power. A mysterious stranger wearing a cloak appeared, his eyes blazing. The dark-haired girl tried to grab the blade, but the hooded man threw her to the ground and snatched the artifact first. The mysterious sorcerer got what he wanted. The angry knight tried to recover the artifact, directing a magical blow at the opponent, but he blocked it with his magical chains. The dark figure mocked the weak knight and pushed Shiro away. The warrior's face burned with anger. He was determined to fight and told him, "Don't mess with me." Shiro screamed and launched a powerful magical blow at the enemy. The massive strike, containing the power of the Demon King, shook the air. The pink chains exploded under the blade's pressure. The enemy watched the scene in terror. The sorcerer barely managed to dodge the attack. With a faint laugh, he remembered his former enemy's greatness. The Night King's power began to fade, and he stared at his opponent in despair. The exhausted knight realized his helplessness. The dark sorcerer, who longed for the game to continue, ended the fight hastily. So, this is where it all begins. The woman spoke the name Ravis angrily. An ominous sound came from under the hood. "It's been a while, you foolish Mysius. You'll regret betraying me someday," the priestess Ravis said. "You're the person who will be defeated and condemned to defeat by that man you despise." And with gloating, the sorcerer said he's looking forward to it, and soon the king will awaken. So let's see how humans can stop him. The dark sorcerer crossed the portal and disappeared, leaving the two in a destroyed street. Shiro struck the ground with his fist. There was nothing he could do. He's too weak and needs time to recover. Is the battle over? Shiro wondered if the priestess knew this sorcerer. In fact, they've known each other for a very long time. Shiro boiled with anger. The priestess should have warned him in advance to prepare and not lose the artifact. She replied that he could barely stand on his feet even though he only fought one magical warrior, so he should calm down. Shiro was about to object while gripping the priestess's arm tightly, but at that moment, a familiar voice was heard. The boy asked the priestess to tell him any information she had. Lady Mysius didn't expect the sorcerer to return this quickly, and she underestimated the situation. Carol ran at full speed toward her brother. Carol was very scared after her fight with the lion. She ran toward Shiro and asked him to reassure her. Shiro hugged her and said that as long as he's with her, he won't let anyone hurt her. He turned to the priestess again and demanded she tell him everything she knows today. Mysius agreed. Carol started to get hysterical. She wants to spend the whole day with Shiro, and he'd like to spend time with her as soon as he regains his strength, so she told him to heal well before they play, and he replied that he promised. Meanwhile, among the ruins, a little girl crawled out from under the rubble. Upon seeing Shiro, the child started screaming the name of their savior. Then people like her chanted the hero's name. The crowd got closer and closer. Carol and Shiro were the center of attention, but this time was different from before. After a while, in the basement of Kane's castle where it all began, Shiro and Lady Mysius were standing. She said here Kane synchronized with the magic artifact fragment. Everything was fate's doing, and no one can escape its curse. Shiro didn't come here for empty talk. He wants specific details. Mysius extended her hand to the boy and offered to discover the story together. Shiro was skeptical about the offer, so she asked him, "Do you doubt me?" He trusted the priestess until she started hiding things from him, but she saved him once, so he'll try to give her another chance. They shook hands, and the priestess promised she would tell him everything she knows. Everything. Absolutely everything. Suddenly, Shiro found himself in an unfamiliar place. His astral body was hovering in the air above breathtaking landscapes. He wondered where he was. The priestess appeared beside him. She had transported him back in time 5,000 years, to when civilization didn't exist yet, and kings used humans as slaves. People were in a state of panic trying to flee from something. A massive shadow approached. A powerful blow struck the innocents. A hand with giant claws suddenly rose up. The huge red-haired king boasted about the punch that had killed many. His blue friend found the game too boring. He preferred crushing them in his fist. That was more fun in his opinion. In that ancient era, before humans gained tremendous power, humanity was no better than cattle. So how did the people of that time manage to defeat these giant creatures? They couldn't succeed. It's impossible. Only a king can overcome another king. What does all this mean? Humans are too weak to stand against the kings. The only way is to exploit the conflicts between the kings themselves, make the kings fight each other and benefit from that. Only one man managed to accomplish this. It was obvious from the look in the man's eyes that he was planning something. He suddenly started shouting to Lord Chinos that the information had been delivered as ordered. The man's name was Ravis. What kind of information does an ordinary man possess? It's all about the kings strategizing to deceive each other. Ravis informed Chinos that the men sent to Highland Island had conducted their investigations. Lord Catron is researching sealing methods. Sigos was furious to hear this news. Who would seal him? Once he fully learns the sealing technique, battles will become useless, so they must attack first. Chinos took the above into consideration and decided to eliminate Catran. He must pay with his life for this insolence. Ravis stared at the king as he walked away. Once he left, another man emerged from the nearby bushes. We must inform the others that Chinos has gone to behead Catron, the man agreed. Ravis was determined to finish this. Shiro said, "Fighting the kings, what courage." The priestess said Ravis was originally a dragon hunter, but he had to adapt to the new reality. After a while, a roaring sound was heard. Chinos grabbed Catron and threw him to the ground. The Blue King was shocked by the sudden attack. He didn't understand the root cause of the situation. Chinos knew that Catron was learning the sealing technique even though it was forbidden. For what purpose was he doing that? Catron tried to calm his attacker, saying it had nothing to do with him. Chinos didn't believe a single word. Clearly, Catron was longing to destroy him. The Red King swung, delivering a fatal blow. At that moment, Catron shouted to Ravis, "It's time to move." The man wasn't far and was watching the situation closely. As soon as he heard the command, Ravis jumped from the water and began summoning the sealing technique of Haiyan Island. A massive magic seal spread across the water's surface. Chinos saw Ravis and was surprised by his presence here. Once Chinos' attention was distracted, Catron seized the moment. The Blue King plunged his hand into Chinos' body. Everything was planned. Chinos would pay the price for defying Catran. Magic chains rushed toward their target. Would they really be able to seal a king? Chinos had walked right into the trap himself, and no one would let him escape. The chains began tightening around the red-haired king's neck, giving him no chance to move. In an instant, Chinos evaporated, leaving behind only a magic sword. Catron was sure that Chinos would never have imagined such a day would come. Ravis wondered what Catron would do when the other kings learned of his actions. Catron swung his sword, unleashing a massive wave. When the wave reached the mountains, it split them like butter. Ravis was amazed by the sword's destructive power. With the sealing technique and the power Chinos left behind, no one would be able to confront the Blue King. Ravis swore loyalty to this powerful king. From now on, Catran was beyond anyone's reach. That was the beginning of everything. Catran spread his wings by learning the king sealing technique. From then on, even an ordinary person could activate the sealing circle if they entered it. Catran felt perfect. Obtaining the purple flame sword meant that Catron had essentially gained part of Chinos' power, but he didn't expect such an act to open Pandora's box. From then on, the kings began to distrust each other, tried to control each other, and killed each other. That's when the kings began exploiting any opportunity available to them, even starting to use human power and granting them some of their power to help them in battles. As the number of kings being hunted increased, human power grew day by day, until humanity finally gained power surpassing that of the kings. That was natural. Catran looked in horror at what his hands had created. Ravis had been waiting for this day for far too long. Ravis's historic victory brought humanity a future without kings. After defeating Catran, Ravis himself became king of the entire world. Humanity cheered, as Ravis had crowned himself the new king. This was destiny. Suddenly, the young man realized something, and his manifestation began to fade. At this point, their history lesson ended. Shiro asked why they came out. The priestess replied that Ravis, bound by the chains of fate, tried to do something to prevent their story from spreading. Now Shiro must realize what kind of enemy he faces. A scoundrel who can mock even the kings. A man came to the queen carrying information about a power that would interest her. He told her this man was interesting and seemed to have his eye on her. After hearing that, the queen summoned magic daggers and launched them at the intruder, but all the projectiles missed their target, and the man didn't move from his spot. She said he promised her that if she helped him get rid of Klein, he would keep his promise. Even she can't stop the wrath of the Barbaros family. This is a very dangerous situation. Ravis calmed the queen, saying it was just a joke. The queen felt tense and promised she would kill the sorcerer someday. Ravis said that's something to think about later, but now they need to think about the present. He expressed confidence that they could build a wonderful cooperative relationship. Meanwhile, in the castle dungeon, Shiro was demanding more information. He needs to know the background of Ravis's life. The young man asked to be shown everything with the Ring of Fate, but Misius only frowned at him. Shiro kept his promise and collected the artifacts, but how is he supposed to fight when he doesn't know who the real enemy is? The Ring of Fate says now isn't the right time to tell Shiro about this, and when the time comes, he'll realize it himself. Shiro felt annoyed that Misius always avoids answers by using the Ring of Fate. She replied that she's just a lonely spirit and isn't worth all this trouble. Shiro asked, "And what about another lonely spirit? Does that mean I exist in a similar way?" After a while at Lind Castle, there was a sword leaning against a table, and Shiro was sleeping in his bed, but his sleep didn't last long. Carol burst into the room screaming at the top of her voice, carrying big news for her big brother. What could be more important than restful sleep? Master Shiro will soon become lord of the castle. The young man was shocked by this news. Many townspeople came to his room and started bowing to him. The people had decided that Reno Castle would belong to Shiro from now on, as a token of gratitude for saving the city. Shiro put on his mask and refused these honors. People were confused and didn't understand why Lord Shiro refused. Wasn't this reward enough? Shiro took a deep breath and began explaining the situation from his perspective. He wasn't saving the townspeople or anyone else. He was doing it for his own benefit only. The young man slapped the table beside him and asked everyone to leave his room. He's not a savior, and if they want someone like that, they should look for another fool. With these words, he started heading toward the exit, leaving the crowd of people in complete shock. He won't trust anyone else. That will never happen. A few minutes later, the boy was already standing outside the castle gates with rain falling on him. Misius was surprised that Shiro was leaving the land this quickly, while the villagers wanted him to stay. No, what they really want is anyone they think will be a hero for them. Doesn't the young man have any attachments or something like that? And especially since you've been here for almost a year. Shiro doesn't understand what benefit could come from being attached to something, so he asks Misius to shut up and follow him. Before taking 10 steps, the little girl shouted her hero's name. He turned to see who was calling him. Despite the rain, the girl managed to catch up with Shiro. She heard he was going on a journey and prepared some provisions for him. Nice, neat muffins. Shiro was pleased with this attention and accepted the gift with thanks. She said she would pray for Lord Shiro's safety, and he in turn promised to pray for her good fortune. On this kind note, they said goodbye to each other. This bread was a symbol of a good harvest. After a while, outside Lavi Castle, it was a bit cold. Carol grumbled because she couldn't even light a fire on this cold day. Shiro jumped from the tree and headed toward the girl. He used the knight's hellfire skill and helped light the fire. Carol was amazed by Shiro's abilities. In a moment, he managed to warm them both. Now they have enough time to listen to the real reason for the girl's coming. Shiro wanted to know why she followed him. Carol said she really admires him. He's her role model, and she wants to enjoy her time with him. The young man didn't believe her words and thought she was dodging the answer. The girl said she's ready to say anything, as long as he'll be satisfied with her answer. Shiro changed the subject and asked her to hand him the perfume. Carol handed him a bag of foul smell. He said, "I think that's enough questions for today. Shiro will find out Carol's real reason sooner or later." The girl was excited, believing that Shiro is the coolest and kindest young man ever. Shiro looked at the treetops, wondering what Misius was doing up there. The priestess was using the Ring of Fate. She resorted to using fate to avoid upcoming troubles. In that second, the girl's eyes lit up with a golden glow and she found herself in an unknown space. Suddenly, she heard a distress call. The priestess tried to figure out who could be asking for rescue in a place like this. Suddenly, a certain angel appeared. He was angry at the uninvited guests who dared to cling to fate. He stretched his hand toward Misius. The priestess was confused as she saw the huge hand approaching her quickly. Suddenly, the tree branch broke, and the priestess fell toward the ground. Shiro noticed this and ran to help immediately. He jumped and managed to catch Misius before she fell to the ground. Shiro asked what happened. It seems Misius misused the Ring of Fate. She said she woke up the sleeping King of Fate who swallowed her. Shiro asked her not to look into fate on his behalf anymore. Whatever awaits us, and if he doesn't like the future he sees, he'll destroy it with his own hands. Shiro always acts strong and tough regardless of the situation. The next morning, Carol woke up from her sleep. Shiro was already awake and had prepared breakfast for the girl. She thanked him. Then he told her they would head to Lavi tonight, and Carol asked Shiro if he wanted to put on an entertaining show. It will be something very exciting. Shiro intends to turn Lavi Castle upside down, Meanwhile, inside the castle, the guards were searching for Lady Nicole, but their attempts failed. The girl with the golden armor reported that they found no trace of Lady Nicole's escape in the castle. The man with the closed helmet was extremely unhappy. He didn't want to hear excuses and said he would order the killing of anyone who disobeyed orders. Suddenly, the castle gate seemed to have exploded, which surprised the man and the girl. Shiro and Carol, armed with the stench, stormed the palace grounds. More interestingly, they demanded a welcome for the new owners of Lavi Castle. And of course, how could there be no gifts? Shiro threw the first bottle. It shattered on the ground, and a strong foul smell began to spread throughout the area. Shiro said the smell might be stinky, but it was made with love. The effect is incredible. Men get strength and girls get beauty, so breathe deeply. Carol also praised this perfume, saying it's the most natural of all perfumes. People were terrified and couldn't breathe. It was a despicable act to throw something like this in broad daylight. The man with the helmet couldn't understand what was wrong with these two. The girl requested permission to handle the matter herself, saying she wouldn't forgive those who polluted the lands of Lavi Castle. The man promised he wouldn't kill the knight if she eliminated the thieves. Shiro noticed a knight approaching. It seemed they caught their first prey today. The red-haired girl didn't know who they were, but she wouldn't allow them to do as they pleased in Lavi Castle. Shiro looked forward to testing his opponent's skills. The boy dodged the attack and stole a purse from the knight's belt. The girl noticed it was missing and screamed, "How dare he touch my money?" Shiro was surprised to find only 1 silver coin. That was her salary for a whole month of service, and she demanded it back. The young man threw the coin toward the red-haired girl and said, "That's too small an amount to steal." The knight was confused. Was this amount really that small? Unlike the girl, it seemed that man over there had plenty. Shiro rushed toward the man with the helmet, wanting to borrow some money from him. The man noticed the boy approaching and immediately took a fighting stance, saying, "Not today." The man summoned a huge spirit to help him. Shiro was impressed by this man's ability. The giant warrior attacked Shiro, but the attack was too slow, and Shiro easily dodged it. The man with the helmet saw the knight approaching him, but there was no more time to maneuver. Shiro rushed with a crushing blow toward his opponent. The man barely stood on his feet and needed help now. Shiro hoped the man with the helmet wouldn't resist now and would lend him some money. Suddenly, a rope rushed toward Shiro and wrapped around his leg. The red-haired girl restrained the boy to give her commander some time. The girl didn't know who they were, but she wouldn't allow them to do as they pleased. Shiro noticed there were more interesting people here than in Lind Castle. From his words, the girl realized he was Shiro. She didn't know what happened at Lind Castle, but that wouldn't work here. The boy asked her not to get angry about what was happening. He was just playing around a bit. While Shiro was distracted, the man got his chance. He fired his flare gun and a red light lit up the city. Shiro heard the explosion. Was backup really coming now? Carol was the first to face the support group. She asked them to follow the squad in the other direction closer to Shiro. But if they didn't want to, there was a tried and true solution. Carol threw another jar of stench at the knights. The knights didn't expect the girl to be hiding more of these jars. A flash occurred, and the knights began to groan and beg for fresh air. Carol reassured the soldiers that the smell was completely harmless to their health, so they should enjoy it. Soldiers from all directions saw Lord Brighton's flare. They must hurry to him to avoid reprimand. All the squads rushed to help their commander. At that moment, Shiro cut the rope with his hand. He'd had enough fun, and that was enough for today. The red-haired girl was shocked by the boy's action. He started this chaos, and now he was running away. For Shiro, all of this was like an amusement park. Life is short and must be enjoyed. The knight pulled something from behind her back and, with a sudden move, threw her sword toward Shiro. The boy calmly dodged the attack. Shiro jumped onto a rooftop and began chasing Carol. The boy caught the girl in his arms and suggested they leave the place today. But Carol was expecting Shiro to teach that ugly girl a lesson. The red-haired girl heard everything and got angry because she actually had a large number of admirers. Shiro shouted, "That was just today's welcome. I'll be staying here for a while, so our next meeting is very soon." Carol was excited that she would play with these guys more. Shiro and Carol left the castle grounds very quickly. The girl shouted after them, wanting to end everything here and now. Suddenly, another bottle of stench fell near her. A flash of light illuminated the knight's face clearly. She wasn't expecting that. Now she probably wanted to catch these two tricksters by any means. Meanwhile, a barefoot girl was running through the city streets asking for help. From her condition and clothes, it seemed she had been mistreated. The Lord of Fang Castle promised a reward for whoever captured her, and the palace guards were trying to catch her. The girl stumbled and fell on her face. The guards surrounded the girl. They hadn't caught her yet, but they were already negotiating how to divide the reward. The girl didn't want to go back there again. She remembered those days with hatred. It was impossible to go back there, and the guards were still discussing the prize. The girl gritted her teeth, and the air around her began to cool. Icy flames emanated from her eyes. The guards were terrified. Seeing a girl controlling the weather, she might be a witch. As soon as the guards scattered in different directions, each one of them turned to ice and couldn't move their bodies. The girl tried to escape again, away from these people. Suddenly, she saw a bright flash of light in front of her. Lady Mesius appeared directly in front of her. The frightened girl begged her not to come closer. She didn't want to hurt anyone. The priestess took a step toward her anyway and hugged the frightened child, saying, "It's all over now. There's nothing to fear." The girl was very happy to hear such warm words and apologized. Meanwhile, on the western side of Lavi Castle, Carol was eating a plate of pasta with appetite. Shiro asked the girl to eat as much as she could before anyone recognized them. Once rumors spread in the castle lands, they wouldn't see such delicacies again. Carol was prepared for this outcome. Once someone refused to cook for them, they could force them. Shiro was pleased that his student understood everything quickly. The innkeeper watched them both closely. Suddenly, a man came out of the service entrance and headed toward the innkeeper. The man told him urgent information. The innkeeper ordered both of them to be arrested. They were wanted for the chaos they caused. It seemed the rumors had already reached this place. Something had to be done about it immediately, and the best action now was to escape. The guards spotted the intruders. They wanted revenge for the suffering caused by their stink bombs. Carol had more bottles. Would the guards enjoy their flavor again? The foul smell covered the guards once more. Meanwhile, the red-haired girl apologized to Brighton for their failure to catch those criminals. Brighton reassured her the criminals had proven to be very strong. The girl requested gathering all of Lavi Castle's forces to arrest them, but Brighton suggested simply giving up. The first thing they should do is find Nicole, and the rest could wait. The girl asked him if he would let them do as they pleased in the castle. He replied that they could eliminate the criminals at another time. Nicole is a real monster and an important tool. The girl agreed with Brighton. Somewhere near Lavi Castle, on the first day, posters were hung all over the castle, announcing the search for Shiro and Carol. It's a very exciting start. Carol supported it, saying it would be extremely boring if they weren't wanted. Shiro didn't notice where Lady Mesius went. Carol saw her sitting by a tree hugging some child. Shiro and Carol approached to see who Lady Mesius had brought. This poor child whose fate was determined since birth to live as a victim, even I pitied her. The guards were looking for someone called Nicole. If this was the girl, Mesius replied, the castle's fate depended on her. The girl slept in the priestess's arms, delirious about her mother. Lavi Castle, the Grand Library. A priest wandered in the church giving a sermon. Soon disasters will befall the world. By abandoning your ideologies and trusting in God, you will receive salvation. This priest is the Lord of Lavi Castle, Lord Fang. Brighton burst into the main room with urgent news. Fang turned, and Lord Fang had warned more than once that Sir Brighton should not report any news to him while reading the royal revelation. Brighton apologized, but he had to inform His Majesty personally. Fang was aware of Nicole's disappearance and the uninvited guests on the castle grounds. Brighton was surprised that Lord Fang knew about it. Fang said, "If you two abandoned your thoughts and listened to the royal revelation, you would have predicted it too. But now, enough empty talk. It's better to listen to God's teachings. When winter comes, thick ice will split the rock. Everyone will perish, and only believers will survive." In Lavi Castle, Brancano Palace, Lady Alina returned home. She entered her father's rooms, who had summoned her for an important conversation. He told her he had little time left, and before he departed, he had a story to tell. She asked him what it was. He asked her to come closer and told her that the Branchinos were a prominent family. When the old man died, the girl would continue to represent their family. Her father asked Selena not to be hard on herself. He realized the mistake was his, and he shouldn't have been hard on her. But the girl, as a family member, wanted to continue fighting for Branchino ideals. This answer disappointed her father a little. He realized his daughter could be relied upon, but because she was a woman, there would come a time when she would have to face difficulties. Alina reassured him that nothing like that would happen to her, so the old man was happy to hear that and returned to his bed. At that moment, a man approached them and tried to feel his pulse, then said his time had come. Alina told her father to rest in peace and promised to protect their family until the end. Meanwhile, in the outskirts of Lavi Castle, Shiro didn't understand how the castle's fate could depend on a little girl. He said she must be joking. Mesius understood his words and explained to him that fate is unpredictable, and if she hadn't intervened that day, Shiro's fate would have been just a handful of ashes. Carol felt great sympathy for the girl, but Lady Mesius asked her not to scare her. Shiro reminded them that their main goal was to find the ice hammer, and saving the child wasn't at the top of their list. Mesius told the boy that this girl's body contained a fragment of the ice hammer itself. The hero was surprised. The whole thing was very strange. Who would think of doing something like this? Those men in Lavi Castle, they're worse scum than I expected. The girl began to hallucinate and call for her mother, and suffer from nightmares again. She ran in a dark maze, trying to hide from someone, and searching for help. Suddenly, her foot tripped on chains, and she lost her balance and fell on the stone floor. When she turned around, she noticed a huge hand heading toward her. Lord Fang was holding a fragment in his hand and claimed that his beloved princess had been chosen by the king. She was screaming her disapproval, but he grabbed her, saying she must feel the royal blessing and accept the king's embrace. Then he stabbed her body with a large ice fragment, its power filling her body. The girl suddenly woke up, terrified by what she saw. Lady Mesius was waiting for her to wake up. The priestess approached the girl to calm her, assuring her that no one would hurt her anymore. The little girl hugged her new friend while crying. Late at night, the lights were on in the cottage near Lavi Castle. Shiro was annoyed that he had to cook dinner for everyone and didn't know how to cook. Carol dropped the grocery basket and told Shiro to shut up and just cook. The girl they rescued needed food. Shiro didn't like being ordered around and rushed, but he was happy to surprise everyone with his cooking skills. Carol was very excited to taste her big brother's homemade food. In the room, the girl asked Lady Mesius if she had saved her. She answered that it was fate's will. Fate helped the girl meet the priestess, and they were all just slaves to fate. The girl was very scared. Lord Fang had tried to turn her into a monster. Mesius asked her to tell her what happened, and that she would help her. A sharp feeling pierced the child's body and mind. It hurt her to remember. It was unbearable pain, and she didn't want to remember. At that moment, Shiro and Carol brought a huge plate of food, announcing it was mealtime. Mesius suggested she eat well first, and after she regained her strength, she could tell them what happened to her later. Shiro set the table and invited everyone to join them. They all needed to regain their strength. Carol urged the girl to eat a lot. The girl thanked Shiro for his care. In response, Shiro approached and placed his hand on her shoulder affectionately. He told her there was no need to be afraid as long as she was with them. They wouldn't let anyone hurt her. They would destroy them. The moment he removed his hand from her shoulder, a mysterious glow appeared that caught Lady Mesius's attention too. Midnight came. The little girl was sleeping in the same bed with Carol. Meanwhile, Shiro was sitting on the roof. Lady Mesius decided to keep him company. She didn't want to leave the hero alone. Shiro was tired. He no longer wanted to work on the same team with the priestess. It was boring. Mesius was surprised. Could the great hero of Lind Castle get tired? Shiro was tired of uncertainty. He wasn't a complete hero, but he wasn't completely evil either. He hated himself for that. Who was he really? The priestess said it didn't matter, whatever Shiro did would be judged. That was the natural course of events. But the boy cared. She said this was good because they were both desperate beings, so they could only do what they could. That's exactly why they were still together. They had no hope. Meanwhile, the search for escaped criminals was underway in the city streets. Alina and the palace guards were questioning passers-by. They were looking for a young man and a girl. One of the men said he hadn't seen the girl, but had seen the man, then pointed his finger saying he saw the young man there. Alina ordered the guards to stay alert. At that moment, she heard a familiar voice. The voice asked why the guards and knights weren't resting at this late hour. Were they really working overtime and hadn't tasted sleep? Because of this, Alina recognized the voice and turned to find Shiro on one of the buildings. She told him she knew his true identity, certain that Shiro was a demon who committed terrible acts in Lind Castle. Shiro was sad to hear such accusations. This information was false. Alina ordered an attack on the boy. Many arrows flew toward him. He mocked her lack of resourcefulness. All he had to do was wave his hand, and all the arrows scattered randomly. 2 guards snuck up behind him. One summoned lightning power, and the other used fire power. Shiro had no problem catching their fists, and felt nothing. The 2 guards couldn't believe their eyes. The fact that they could only gather little information meant they didn't know he was the invincible, good thief. Shiro simply threw the 2 guards. Alina noticed things were bad. She drew her sword and summoned the power of the Brankaino family. The Brankaino sword must teach this man who mocked Lavi Castle a lesson. She raised her sword, which glowed with red light. Shiro was pleasantly surprised she could actually do something. The girl immediately attacked the boy, declaring she would not forgive him. Meanwhile, Lady Misius hadn't left the girl for a moment. She was having nightmares again. She opened her eyes and remembered something, then jumped out of bed in terror. There was a church with lots of corpses and blood inside. A monster had killed everyone to death. Misius asked her how she was. She answered that her friends and family were all dead. That man killed them all, the Lord of Fang Castle. Lady Misius heard everything she needed to know. In the castle courtyard, the battle was in full swing. Alina used magical night skills by summoning fireballs. This time, Shiro was impressed by the girl's power. Alina launched fire masses at the boy, shouting at him to die, and a series of violent explosions occurred. Shiro was unaffected and said it got a bit hot, and Shiro tried to get away from the red-haired girl. Alina took off chasing him, and the guards could only watch, they couldn't keep up with them. The knight didn't fall behind a single step. Shiro mocked the girl, saying she should be sleeping at this late hour so her pores wouldn't open. But the girl didn't care about these provocations. She carried the justice of the Brancano family and wouldn't allow what happened at Lind Castle to happen here. Shiro didn't understand why Alina was still following him if his team had set a trap for her and she couldn't defend herself. What made the boy laugh most was the word justice. What was Shiro trying to say by that? The word justice reminded Shiro of what happened to him in his youth, and he told her she resembled him when he was young. Alina got angry. She never looked like someone who breaks into a castle in broad daylight and causes a commotion. That's not exactly what Shiro meant. Alina wondered why they kidnapped Lady Nicole. She was their princess. Shiro started laughing louder. "Is that trembling girl a princess?" Shiro asked, laughing. Alina asked what they talked about with her. Shiro looked at his hands, angry at what she was saying, then replied that the girl couldn't say anything. Suddenly, Shiro moved quickly and appeared behind the knight's back. With a quick reaction, she managed to block the attack. Shiro continued pressing, but Alina stood firmly on her feet. Shiro asked her if she knew the girl was scared. It was a deep fear, a fear the naked eye could see. The girl didn't believe the boy's words. This princess was chosen by the kings and had nothing to fear. Shiro realized their minds were clouded, that they had all been deceived. People with a strong sense of justice are the easiest to deceive. The girl gathered herself, then struck Shiro with her sword and ordered him not to mock her. Shiro blocked the blow and stepped back a few steps. He said that although the girl wasn't smart, she was good at using a sword. Alina asked the knight to come down and continue fighting, but instead, Shiro offered to make a bet. Killing her was meaningless to him. In 2 weeks, the world would change, and her so-called justice would become just a joke. Lord Fang, Nicole, and even Brighton, they would all appear changed. If the boy lost, Alina could do whatever she wanted with him. That was Shiro's offer. But what if he was right? The girl asked. If it turned out he was right, the girl could continue believing in her justice without being affected by others, but she would have to be wiser. Alina didn't believe a single word the boy said, but she agreed to his bet. Shiro threw a coin to be a symbol of their bet, and Alina silently accepted the token. In 2 weeks, they would see what their so-called justice would look like. Then Shiro rushed off. Miss Alina was severely exhausted after their battle. She was very weak. After his conversation with Lady Alina, while Shiro was returning to the cottage, suddenly a flash of bright light appeared near him. It was Lady Misaz, who was surprised by Shiro's admiration for Alina. While the boy had some free time, Misius offered him to prove himself in a new place. The boy asked about the intended place. She answered, "The Holy Cross Church." Nicole said this place was soaked in light and blood. There were countless buried bones and many vengeful souls crying for help. In another scene, a nun carrying flowers prayed to King Antinous. Many people were disappearing one after another, and the woman asked for everyone's protection and blessings for those who disappeared without a trace. The servant came out from behind the statue and asked the woman what she was doing here at this late hour. She answered that she came to pray to the king, hoping it would reduce the number of victims of the disappearances. The man threatened her that she would be next if she didn't go home now. The nun apologized and said she would leave the church in a hurry. When she left, she believed with all her heart that Antinous would protect them because he was a great king. Suddenly, she heard someone wondering if this was really the Holy Cross Church, and why the place where everyone prays looked so miserable. She saw Shiro sitting on a tree and asked him to introduce himself. The boy jumped from the tree and started walking toward her. In Lind Castle, they call him Shiro, the true good thief. The nun saw the mask on his face, and as the king once said, "Those who hide their faces are evil." This young man must be planning something. "You're right," Shiro said. The woman pulled out a knife, wondering about his real goal. Was he really planning to cause chaos here? Shiro looked at the knife. She was unlikely to be able to do anything with a toy like this. The woman threatened that she was a nun, but she trained as a knight. In an instant, the boy threw her to the ground on her back. Shiro was angry. Don't you hear the countless sleeping souls under your feet? They're crying right beneath you. The nun called his words nonsense. This was the holiest place in the castle, and he couldn't do as he pleased, and she wouldn't let him insult the king. Shiro punched his fist near her face and ordered her to be quiet. The scene was stunning. He asked her to close her eyes and listen carefully, or he would kill her. The nun looked at him and didn't understand why he was angry. She had no choice but to close her eyes to hear what he was saying. Immediately, she felt that terrifying aura, troubled souls asking for help. Shiro lifted her up, and he saw on her face that she understood what he was saying. They offer prayers in this place every day without noticing the souls that cannot find peace. Isn't that ironic? The woman didn't believe it. He must be using an illusion or some trick. It was impossible for a nun who worked in this place daily not to know about such a tragic matter. Shiro offered another bet. If there were many corpses in this church, maybe the woman was an accomplice to the crime. If he won, she would obey him. But what if the nun won? She could do whatever she wanted with him. The nun was skeptical, saying that even if she lost the bet, she would never betray the king. The boy agreed to that, but told her she would soon forget her words about loving the king. The nun asked him to follow her to show him the truth. They entered the main hall, and while Shiro looked around, the woman showed him their king, whom they worshipped. Everyone who entered the temple knelt and prayed. Shiro didn't bow to any of them. He killed them. The nun tried to accuse him of insulting the king, but he asked her to postpone the matter until she won the bet. She would soon realize that all the problems of this world were caused by the king. The servant appeared again in front of the statue and got angry because he asked the woman to leave the church, but she brought more people. Suddenly, Shiro jumped behind the servant's back, grabbed his head forcefully, and slammed it to the ground. Even the holy tiles couldn't withstand the force of the impact. The man threatened the boy that Lord Fang himself stood behind him. Shiro knew that well and waved his fist. That's why he targeted this man. The man gritted his teeth. He wouldn't forget this act and wouldn't forgive him. He summoned the power of the dead spirits to help him, and they rushed toward Shiro. Did the man really hope such a cheap trick would work? The boy used the power of purifying fire to destroy the spirits. In the blink of an eye, all the dead spirits burned. The man stood up, so Shiro drove his knee into his face with all his strength. The blow was so powerful that it made the servant bleed. Shiro pressed his face against the wall again, asking about the location of the secret passage. The man thought he was a fool if he hoped to hear an answer. Shiro offered two options. Either the servant tells him where the passage is and stays alive, or he dies and Shiro finds it himself. The man laughed and said his life depends only on his king Antinous, and the boy doesn't even dare to think about deciding the fate of the king's servant. At that moment, the young man crushed the man's head. He chose this path himself. The believer's body fell to the ground. The nun was terrified. How dare you kill a believer in Antinous' temple? You will face royal judgment for what you did. Shiro replied that he doesn't mind challenging the king with his strength if the king stoops to meet him. Meanwhile, he asked her to take him to the basement if she didn't want the same fate. The nun realized he wasn't joking. She led him to the entrance leading to the temple's foundation. The high priest once took this path, but others were forbidden from going down here. A strange feeling came from this place. Even the nun should feel it, although she had never seen a battlefield before. She wouldn't believe anything until she saw it with her own eyes. They descended to the bottom of the temple's foundation, where in front of them was a massive gate with angel wings. Shiro asked the nun to step back so he could open the gate. He extended his blood-stained hand and placed his palm in its center. The gate began to open and emit a terrifying red glow, and red mist leaked from the sealed room. The nun fell to the ground, terrified by what she saw. No matter how miserable they were or how hard their lives, in the end, they were nothing but victims. Huge pools of purple blood, corpses, and mountains of bones everywhere, and a massive tree feeding on their unfulfilled dreams. The nun covered her face, with one question in her mind: why? But the answer is very simple. They were all killed to feed this large creature. Is this really true? The woman was in great shock. She finally realized that the king they worshipped was not divine or noble, but just a creature devouring their bodies and souls. The woman was terrified to death, as everything she believed in was a horrible lie. And while the nun tries to collect herself, Shiro decides to start a confrontation with the servants of this false king. Suddenly, demonic hands with claws began emerging from the blood pools. Shiro summoned a massive flaming sword and slashed the demons with it. Hordes of evil beings revealed their faces. It was time to show what they could do. Meanwhile, at the royal headquarters, Lord Fang felt that someone had entered the place, and he must do something about it urgently. A horde of demons approaches Shiro. Shiro has visited hell before, which is why he can recognize souls like these. This world is a place with no good in it, and he can hear the screams of their regret. But despite that, he must eliminate them. Shiro rushed to attack, because even if they were the missing people the nun talked about, he has no other choice. The woman couldn't understand the meaning of all this. Meanwhile, in the cottage where Shiro and his companions were, Carol was dying of boredom. She didn't understand why Shiro left her alone, and why she has to sit with the girl by herself. She doesn't mind helping somewhat, but she prefers fun in the castle. Suddenly, an arrow whistled toward Carol. The girl heard it approaching and managed to dodge the attack in time. She snuck to the window to look outside and see what was happening. A crowd of guards was surrounding the cottage. Sir Brighton ordered them to capture Lady Nicole, and Lord Fang said to hand her over even if she was dead. The archers drew their bowstrings again. Carol was shocked. How did the difficulty level rise this much? She doesn't want to fight all these guards. A barrage of arrows poured directly into the girl's room. Carol took off her cloak and wrapped the girl in it. If they can escape, Shiro will have to give Carol something delicious to eat. Carol grabbed the girl and rushed to jump from the window. The guards didn't expect the girl to jump to them herself. As they were getting ready, Carol softened her fall by standing on one guard's head. Things are very bad. They must escape as quickly as possible. At that moment, Sir Brighton blocked their way. He demanded she release Lady Nicole and used summoning power to get help from a massive knight. A large ghostly hand appeared above the two girls. Carol summoned a shield to block the attack, but the hand pressed on the shield and pushed it toward the ground. Carol won't be able to hold out long against this attack. Finally, the shield cracked under the pressure of the ghostly hand. Carol flew to one side, and Lady Nicole in the opposite direction. Carol promised her big brother Shiro that she would protect the girl at any cost. Sir Brighton approached Carol and pinned her head to the ground with all his strength. Meanwhile, in the temple's basement, Shiro was cutting down the last of the demons. These demons were made from the souls of the dead, but now they're gone. Let them rest in hell instead of wandering around this place. The nun frantically tried to find a deeper truth in all this, as she can't believe that her king deceived her this way. That's all for now. They must return to their companions who are waiting for his help. But Shiro had barely taken a few steps back when the blood behind him began to rise and speak to him. If you've just arrived, why are you leaving so quickly? Shiro turned in shock and continued. There must be something important you wanted to ask about, right? Lord Fang's shadow appeared from the blood, and his blood projection greeted Shiro. Or should I call you King of Knights Klein? Shiro threw his dagger sharply toward the instigator, but the dagger pierced through him, and only blood splattered on the sides. Then the knight resorted to firepower, summoning hellfire and unleashing it on his opponent. As expected from the former King of Knights, no hesitation. But no matter how hard he tries, no matter how much he fights, this castle won't change. The great King Antinous will awaken soon. Shiro turned and headed toward the exit. He didn't have time to engage in the triviality of death. Lord Fang laughed loudly after him. When they left the main hall, the nun turned to the boy. She saw everything with her own eyes, but she still finds it hard to believe what's happening. Antinous was the king they always believed in. He's the one who gave them peace and happiness. The woman can't turn her back on Antinous this easily. Then, Shiro wanted to show who the people had been worshipping all this time. Meanwhile, too many people gathered in the temple. The guards found the body of one of the worshippers inside it. Whoever dares to commit such a sin will be cursed for life, the citizens said. At that moment, Shiro climbed to the main hall. The guards didn't immediately recognize the man in the red cloak, but one of the soldiers recognized him, and immediately guessed that the dead man was Shiro's doing. The guards immediately tried to surround the boy. They won't let him do such things again. Some even thought he was responsible for the disappearance of the town's residents. The townspeople also began to riot. Could he be the demon that Lord Fang warned about? The believers began asking Antinous for help in defeating the monster. Shiro looked at the false king's statue. He had seen this scene before a long time ago, when he was falsely accused and burned alive while everyone was screaming at him. He clenched his fist, angry at the fact that the truth always remains with the minority. In an instant, Shiro struck the ground and scattered the guards, and only those standing farthest away could hold their ground. The knight noticed something strange. Shiro jumped high toward the head of Antinous' statue, the king's head smiling mockingly. We must show them your truth. Shiro struck the statue with his fist, trying to shatter it. The knight succeeded, and the statue began to collapse. It crashed to the ground and raised a cloud of dust. Once the dust cleared a bit, the townspeople saw a terrifying scene. There were many disgusting worms inside the statue, but the most disturbing part was in the cocoon hidden at the base of the statue. The nun couldn't believe there was something like this inside. People felt extremely disgusted by the sight. And while everyone tries to suppress their urge to vomit, Shiro opened the cocoon to bring the light of truth to the blind believers. But he found nothing inside. Perhaps the real body was moved somewhere. Back to Carol and Lady Nicole for a moment. Sir Brighton threatens to end Carol's life, but the girl suggests he shouldn't be so arrogant. She crushes one of her stink flasks with her left hand, covering Sir Brighton with a pungent cloud of foul smell. Carol's special stink bomb is back in action. It doesn't just stink, but also has a stunning effect. Carol knocked the man to the ground, then tried to find the girl as quickly as possible. Carol noticed that Nicole was sitting motionless. The girl asked not to be grabbed and began glowing with blue flames. Carol stopped trying to understand what was going on. Terror flashed in Nicole's eyes, and she screamed at the top of her lungs and released powerful energy that turned all the guards into ice statues. Sir Brighton also froze in his place. Even Carol was trapped in this act. Lady Nicole doesn't want to kill anyone else. Let's go back in time to Lavi Castle. At that time, Nicole didn't realize what gift fate had given her, and she had to pay a heavy price for it. She passed the Genius Project test in which Lord Fang selected her. Nicole's mother was pleased to hear such wonderful news. Now the girl will be stronger and will be able to protect more people. She fought the looming threat alone and was always winning. Everyone was proud to have such a brave and strong defender as Nicole. Things were at their best. But this false happiness soon ended. Nicole's powers were growing, and she found it increasingly difficult to control them. She didn't realize what was happening to her. Lord Fang knew everything perfectly well, but he pretended it was just a temporary side effect. He promised the girl that he would take care of her and make her a better person. Nicole was very confident in the Lord, but the real nightmare began that day. She was calming herself, asking her mind to be patient a little and trust Lord Fang, but in reality, Lord Fang preferred to end Lady Nicole's mission. The girl's last mission was to die and sacrifice herself in the name of King Antinous. All hopes turned to ash. Nicole felt extreme fear and used the frost power again and managed to stop the cult's followers. She miraculously survived that trap and met Lady Misius. And back to the present, the priestess noticed a massive blue column. Lady Misius realized what was happening, and while Lord Fang was sipping his wine, he too noticed a flash of light. An ancient king awakens at exactly the right moment. Shiro rushes in the same direction, hoping desperately that the two girls are okay. And of course there's Ravis, who joined at the right time too. Lady Nicole tries to restrain something inside her. An evil king awakens, demanding she unleash all the anger hidden in her body. As this world doesn't deserve protection, the girl tries to fulfill a promise she made to her mother, to be kind and not hurt anyone. Shiro has already approached the scene of the incident. The energy emanating from the center of the glow freezes the knight's hands in an instant. Shiro miraculously withstands the frost attack and succeeds in breaking free from the ice shackles. Misius appears and says it's the spinal fluid of an ancient king, and Lady Nicole's body has completely absorbed it. They're trying to use her as a vessel to revive the king. Shiro asks why Messias was absent during the attack on Carol and Nicole. She herself had sent him to the church, but for some reason didn't inform him about the attack. Messias replied that she had other important matters and wasn't required to keep Shiro updated on everything. The knight gets angry because once again Messias isn't revealing all the information, but the priestess tells him he'll understand everything when the time comes, and it's enough that she saved his life. Shiro threatens to slaughter the priestess if she plays any games with him, but for now he asks how to stop what's happening. Messias suggests that the body is ready, but the energy isn't complete yet. The magic core is still sealed. If they can prevent the fusion of the body and core within 24 hours, they have a chance. Great, another stupid game. Lady Nicole stood on her feet. An ancient king speaks through her voice, pleased with the long-awaited meeting after returning to that perfect land. Shiro sees that things aren't going in their favor, and that they need to send this king back to hell again. The king looked at Shiro in surprise. The one standing before him is just an ordinary humble man. Shiro prepares for the duel, summons his power, then charges forward and sends a cutting wave toward his opponent. But you can't defeat an ancient king with such cheap tricks. Antinous blocks the strike with a wall of ice. He looked to where Shiro was but didn't find him. He heard the young man's voice running in a completely different place. Shiro grabbed the frozen Carol, and after running a bit, threw the icy girl in his arms to Miss Messiah's, who caught her. Shiro wondered if his friend would survive. She answered, "She's not dead, so she'll be fine." Shiro was starting to lose confidence in the priestess as a companion, but at least he asked her not to let anyone near him die. Messiah's promised to help Shiro and told him he could rely on her. Messiah's flew away, and Shiro returned to Antanas. The king was surprised that a young man would think of others at such a time. Shiro noted that Antinous doesn't seem strong, and that he'd had to kill fallen kings like him before. Antinous replied, "If you're talking about cars, you shouldn't compare me to him." Shiro said, "Well, it's time to see the difference between you two." Sir Brighton saw that Shiro was trying to thwart Antinous' plans. The guard broke free from his icy prison and attacked Shiro, pinning the young man to the ground with his massive spirit. Shiro was shocked by Brighton's action. Sir Brighton appealed to the king and asked him to hurry to Lord Fang, who had long awaited his resurrection. Unfortunately, Antinous really enjoys watching trivial disputes between humans. No matter how many he sees, they always remain entertaining to him. Sir Brighton was also pleased with Antinous' return, as great hope rests on the ancient king. The ancient king became ready to go to Lord Fang. This angered Shiro, making him resist the ghostly attack. He must not allow Antinous to leave this place. While Shiro was distracted, Brighton rushed to strike him. Shiro noticed the attack at the last moment but couldn't do anything about it, and ended up plowing the ground with his body. Brighton once again asked Antinous to hurry, promising he would try to hinder the young man as much as possible. The ancient king made his way to Lord Fang to attend the meeting. Originally, Shiro wasn't planning to kill Brighton, but it seems this time he left him no other choice. Sir Brighton would no longer allow Shiro to do as he pleased on the grounds of Levay Castle. Time to find out whose grip is stronger. Meanwhile, another group of guards arrived at the church and were shocked by what they saw. Lady Alina asked everyone to stand back. She also wants to understand what's going on here. How did worms appear in the middle of the statue? More interestingly, how are they being fed? One of the guards reported finding an ominous room in the basement, but no one wanted to check it out. Lady Alina volunteered to check the place herself. They went down where two other guards stood at the entrance. As soon as she entered, Alina felt terrified. A huge, ominous tree and countless corpses. What could all this mean? The girl dipped her hand into a pool of blood and pulled out a stuffed rabbit. Lord Fang, is what Shiro said true? How many secrets are hidden in this city? Many people gathered outside Lord Fang's palace. Antinous walked on the red carpet leading to the palace, remembering those wonderful feelings when people bow before him. Lord Fang watched the approaching king from the window. Finally, the long-awaited king came to the people. The guards asked Antinous to follow them to Lord Fang's room. It was strange that the Lord didn't come down personally to receive his king. This time, Antinous forgave him out of gratitude for his resurrection. The guards accompanied the king up the spiral staircase. Lord Fang was pleased to finally meet Antinous. He had waited for this day for so long. The guards intervened, saying it was time to leave the room and leave them alone. Antinous said, "Purposeful, intelligent, and insanely ambitious, these qualities are necessary for a king's servant. I like this." The king acknowledged Lord Fang as his slave. The man humbly replied that it was an honor. The king asked him, "But why haven't you knelt yet? Even the most loyal servants must bow their heads before the king." Fang apologized. "But isn't there something more important?" Antinous forgave his servant's ignorance, this time for his loyalty and courage. "Now, we need information about the ice hammer, a weapon only a king can use." But the man apologized, saying this opportunity isn't available at the moment. "What does all this mean?" the king asked. "Lord Fang didn't spend decades studying kings to become a slave," the Lord said, as he pulled a book from the shelf. Antinous asked the man to speak more clearly. Fang said he found something interesting in the books he read. They described human neural structures and how to control consciousness. "It's a wonderful book. It taught me that controlling one mind means controlling them all." Suddenly, the book fell to the ground. Lord Fang was holding two wooden pieces in his hands and struck them together, creating sound waves. The girl's body stiffened, and Antinous didn't understand what was happening. Somehow, the sound from these tools affects the girl's body. Fang didn't stop hitting the wooden pieces, causing severe agony to Antinous. Now, King Antinous himself must kneel to his master. The king wasn't ready to kneel, let alone kneel before a human. Lord Fang struck the wooden tools harder and ordered him to kneel. Pain pierced the girl's body, but the king felt it personally. His legs trembled. Fang wouldn't stop until Antinous knelt to him. The king couldn't endure it and fell to his knees. Lord Fang was more pleased with himself than ever his plan had succeeded. The man had deliberately used the little girl's body as a vessel. After all, if you destroy a beautiful girl, all beauty in this world collapses too. He had deliberately injected this liquid into Nicole's body, which contained a dose of black magic to control her. This liquid wasn't just spinal fluid for King Antinous. As a result, Nicole's body became a personal prison for the god. And now the only one who should kneel is the ancient king, Antinous. Meanwhile, near the temporary shelter of Shiro and his companions, Sir Brighton was stripped of all his powers. Shiro kicked him in the face. Time to end this. The man was an ordinary fool, and therefore lost the fight with Shiro. But Brighton had another opinion. Shiro wondered how they came up with the idea of bringing a king back to life, a king they would serve, a king they don't understand, a king who would die by his hand. Brighton laughed at Shiro's words, confirming they understood everything perfectly. The inner circle of confidants knew that talk of a savior or king was just a lie to deceive the stupid masses. Shiro couldn't believe what he heard. From the beginning, the king was their target. Serve the king? Who in their right mind would want to serve a king? Shiro suddenly realized he needed to head to the palace immediately. Sir Brighton was pinned to the ground by huge swords, laughing and shouting, glorifying Lord Fang, and demanding he show him the power of the king he created. Storm clouds began to gather over Lavi Castle. "My God, what's happening here?" Shiro said, surprised by what was happening. Then we see Mycenaeus trying to heal Carol with her power. Suddenly we see the whole place on fire, and Nicole screaming and calling for her mother. Mycenaeus hears her voice and says, "This is Nicole's past." And we go to Shiro, who's inside the palace, running and thinking, saying, "I always deal with people who trap others in conspiracies like this person." And he's thinking about Natsu and feeling upset, saying, "I'll never forgive you." Then the guards see Shiro flying in front of them, so they start shooting arrows at him. One of the guards says that Lord Fang said there's a reward if they kill Shiro, but Shiro uses his power and attacks them, hitting them with a powerful strike that destroys the place. The guards go flying and he heads toward the palace. Then we go to Lavi Castle in the Great Library. Fang is holding Antinous and going down the stairs with it. He enters with it into a place with a spell, stops at the spell and says, "Finally, after thousands of years, humans can control the kings, and will take a new step." Then the statues release stones from their mouths that gather at the spell. Fang says, "Ice hammer fragment, give me the great power." But suddenly Elena enters and calls out to him. Fang asks her, "Elena, what's up?" Elena tells him, "Lord Fang, I don't know why you're doing this. You said you wanted to be a friend of justice. A person should have unconditional faith in God." But Fang tells her, "Everything is over. I need to have power to oppose the kings." Elena tells him, "That's why you sacrificed a large number of innocents?" Fang yells at her saying, "This is war. Those who don't have power will end immediately. There's no other way. I see you as just, that's why I won't come near you, but don't interfere." But she tells him, "I'm sorry, Lord Fang. I will interfere because this is my justice." Elena attacks Fang with fire power, but Fang uses wind power and blocks the fire. "There's no need for what you're doing. You're talented but still young. You're not my enemy." But Elena tells him, "I'll defeat you with the pride of the Brancano family," and attacks Fang with sword power, making a big explosion. She says, "I was able to do it," but she finds someone telling her, "Elena, you're stupid." It's Fang using Antinous' power to protect himself. Fang tells Elena, "You won't be able to defeat me." Elena is shocked when she sees this. Fang is happy with the power he has and tells her, "This power entered Nicole's body. I'm the only one in the world who can control this power." He orders Antinous to kill Elena. Antinous uses great power and attacks Elena, hitting her with a powerful strike that sends her flying into the wall. Elena falls to the ground. Fang tells her, "No one will be able to stop me." Elena can't get up from the force of the hit. Fang tells her, "What you're doing is useless. It's impossible for anyone to destroy a plan I've been working on for years." He tells Nicole to kill Elena. Nicole uses her power and attacks Elena. Elena thinks and says, "Is this the end? Will the glory of the Brancino family end?" But suddenly the place starts to collapse. The place collapses, and Fang is upset. But suddenly someone calls out to Fang. That person is Shiro, and he attacks Fang, destroying the place. Elena is shocked by what happened. Shiro tells Elena, "What did you think of me? I told you your opinion would change one day." Elena tells him, "You knew everything from the beginning?" Shiro tells her, "I don't know all the details, but I've seen these dirty tricks before." Shiro goes to Fang and tells him the time has come for you to pay the price. You did something wrong, so you must be punished. Fang tells him, "Me pay the price? I became a king. Why should I live by the same standards as common people?" He tells Nicole to kill Shiro, but Nicole stays standing in place. Fang asks her, "Why aren't you moving and not listening to me?" Nicole looks at him and laughs. Shiro runs and hits Fang with a powerful punch to his face, sending him flying, saying, "Scum like you calls himself a king." Then Shiro looks at Nicole and finds her laughing. She tells him, "Thank you for getting rid of that person. I can control my body now. As a reward, I'll make you a new place in the world." Shiro thinks and says, "No, I don't want her to merge with the magic vessel." Shiro runs to stop her, but Nicole tells him, "It's too late. I'm going to use all my power now." Suddenly, there's a huge tornado destroying the place and coming out of the castle. Mycenaeus and Carol see this power. Carol says, "Did Shiro fail?" Then a great power appears and starts to break, and a huge monster comes out of it. When Fang sees this, he's scared and says, "I won't let everything I did go to waste." He grabs his staff, but the monster knows where Fang is and says, "You were here." Grabbing him and lifting him up, Fang tells the monster, "Let me go, I'm your master." The monster tells him, "You won't be able to control it." Fang says, "Antinos, I'm the one who brought you back." The monster tells him, "Thanks, but I'm going to kill you." And the monster hits him with a powerful strike that finishes him off, then throws him on the ground. And we go back in time and see Fang saying, "Soon a catastrophe will fall on the world, and only God can save us." We return to the present time and see Fang's head lying on the ground. We see Elena lying on the ground with a big rock on top of her. Elena tries to lift the rock, but she can't. Then a person approaches her. That person is Shiro, and he hits the rock, removing it from Elena. Elena is surprised when she sees Shiro in front of her. Shiro tells her, "You're still alive. You're lucky." Elena tells him, "Did Antinous resurrect the dead?" Shiro tells her, "Yeah." Elena thinks and says, "What is he going to do?" We go to Antinous, who's destroying the city, and people are scared. Antinous walks through the city, destroying it, saying, "After 5,000 years, humans haven't changed." Antinous comes down to the ground and uses his power. People are scared of what Antinous is doing. Antinous makes a spell and uses his power on humans, making them all freeze. Then he takes their souls, and Antinous starts taking their souls. Elena is standing with Shiro and tells him, "Am I just going to stand here?" Shiro grabs her hands and tells her, "Don't be stupid. What are you going to do?" Elena tells him, "You want us to stand and watch what's happening?" Shiro tells her, "I'll go and buy some time, and I'll contact Mycenaeus, and she might be able to do something." Elena tells him, "You're not even from Lavi Castle. Why would you go?" Shiro tells her, "I'm curious," and moves quickly. But Elena can't move because of her injury. She's standing watching Antinous killing people. Suddenly Mycenaeus comes and tells Elena, "Shiro asked for me, and I came to deliver something important." After Antinous is able to kill people, he says, "I'm back after 5,000 years. Then Shiro comes and attacks Antinous, hitting him with a powerful strike to his face. Antinous asks him, "Who are you? How dare you hit me?" Shiro tells him, "It's me." She tells him, "You're not dead yet?" Shiro tells her, "And I'll die before you." She tells him, "Well, I let you go out of stupidity, that you'd come back again. You look like you want to die," and attacks him with her power. But he dodges her attack. Shiro tells her, "I'm here." Antinous tells him, "I won't let you go." Shiro thinks and tells Mycenaeus, "I don't want you to interfere unless you're ready. I don't want a lot of people to die."